I have a really special treat for you today, guys. Something coming from a totally different place than the rest of my drawings and paintings on my channel. You know that I love art rage and painting according to shapes of light and dark. You know that I love drawing and thinking about those same principles when I use charcoal. And you know I love texture and that realistic traditional look. And you've seen me paint that way for as many videos as I have on YouTube. But this app, Heavy Paint by Heavy Poly, is a totally unique approach to painting, and it will make you a better painter. So watch this video and learn about why I was playing with this new app and how it directly relates to painting in apps like Art Rage or even traditional painting in oil or acrylic or watercolor. So let's jump into it. Heavy Paint by Heavy Poly is one of the most unique and unabashedly digital apps I've ever used. Just look at this crazy user interface. It looks like it's something out of more like Blade Runner than you would find. I mean, it's such a contrast, right, to Art Rage. You have 5 sliders, one for size, one for color jitter, which just means that it's going to give you a variety of colors and values that are very close to the color and value that you have selected. Then you have a chroma slider, a hue slider that will let you pick from any color in the rainbow, and then you have a saturation slider and a value slider. And it's so cool because those 3 sliders combined with the awesome set of tools that you see here, you can just basically heart any of the tools and bring tools in and out of the app at will. But this elegant, very minimalist user interface that looks like super digital is like I said, it's the furthest thing from every other app I've used on this channel or in my life. But here's why I love it, and here's why I think you should download it today. It's affordable, and it's interesting, and it's crazy, and it's cool, but most importantly, it will make you a better artist, and here's why. It cuts out everything that sort of makes decisions for you, and it makes you focus on thinking like an artist. So thinking like an artist, according to my mentor, Ray Vanilla, who was one of the Tao 6, he was like a Disney illustrator. He was the man who, had I not gone into teaching, I would have probably just been painting with him in the Southwest for my whole life. And I think about him all the time, but you know what he told me? He told me that that value is more important than color, and that detail never saves a painting, and that if I could stand across the room from my painting and throw the paint and get it to land roughly in the right place, then I would be a better painter. Then we all would be better painters, and he would have like all of his little words of wisdom. I see all of those in this app, because what this app does is it, in its weird way, in its unusual approach, forces you to make decisions about shape, about color temperature, and value. And it's that we need to be thinking about all the time, right? So we have our design, we have our composition, we're looking for these value relationships, these color temperature relationships, and it doesn't let us get distracted too much by things like edge development or what brush to pick or all that kind of thing. This app is an app for artists by artists, and I can tell it's made by an artist. The designer or coder or whoever the person that released this, their call name is Heavy Poly, and you can find them on Instagram. And I actually found this app through Instagram. I was following an artist named Ingo the Mango, and that, of course that's like the Instagram name, but hopefully you can use that to find her. Such a cool artist, paints really unique, high saturated, beautiful plein air, all kinds of fun and lighthearted stuff that's just well made. Well, all of a sudden I see this crazy looking art pop up on her feed, and I was like, what is that, right? And I look it up, and I find that it links to Heavy Poly. It was this other account, and this person is an amazing artist and an amazing coder apparently, and has made an amazing app that just works like nothing else on the market. And being different is fun and cool, and it's like it'd be great just to do something, to have something and use something that's just very different. But the point isn't to be different. The point is to learn and to grow. And this app helps me to learn and grow. You guys know that my family life has been nuts for the last few years, and we have gone to great lengths to be able to have some kind of like, I work at the weirdest hours and I'm tired all the time, but I just want to be able to have time to be an artist. And so, I'm always kind of like fighting that fight of juggling, the demands of life and work and family and still trying to make time to be painting all the time that I can. But sometimes you can't balance the thing, and other priorities are important. So I was away for almost a month. I mean, I almost didn't feel like I was almost home. I was so busy for almost a month, and moved the studio and had all kinds of stuff going on. So we were just crazy. Well, I get back to painting, and how I'm just, like more than needing to learn how to draw eyes, nose, mouth, or anything like that, I just needed to like get back in my art brain. And so I was playing around with Art Rage, and I did a little ballet painting. That was fun. And I was playing around in Rebelle, and I did some charcoal sketches in Rebelle. And I was like, it was cool. It was good. It was great to be back. But I knew I needed something to tidy up my art brain, to get me kind of like tuned up, like the gym. I needed to be like back in my art gym to get my brain working the way it should. So I opened up Heavy Paint by Heavy Poly, and it was exactly what I needed. All of a sudden, in this weird world of heavy paint, I'm like drawing little squiggly pebble shapes and using the fill tool and all this stuff that I'm used to here, creating these silhouettes and color picking with the slider and not using my reference image for color and trying to find every shape. And I don't have any elegant brushes to make things look all cool and awesome. I have to like, it's just so raw. Like you can't like gussy it up, So I found, though, that this was exactly what I was looking for. This is exactly what I needed. And I have to say, one thing about digital, I love digital art. I love traditional and digital art. And that's why my page is such kind of like this confluence of the two. But one thing I don't like about digital art is color picking. I just hate it. I would so much rather be mixing my paint, my ultramarine blue, my alizarin crimson, my cad red, whatever. I want to be mixing those colors on my palette. I don't like using color pickers. I don't like picking colors from the reference. I don't like all that stuff. But this app was the first time that I actually kind of like really liked the layout of the color picking. First, you pick your color family, and then you pick your saturation, and then you pick your value. And it's just a logical way to pick colors. It's very similar to how my brain works when I'm actually out oil painting. If I'm out plein air painting, first thing I'm trying to find, if I'm looking at like a little shrub in the woods, I'm trying to decide in the shadow that it's casting, like, is that shadow in the orange, red, blue, yellow, green family? First I find that color family, go get the value, and then check my saturation. And that's what I've got here. So slider for each one of those, big and bold. I could see the color swatch nice and big, so I know what I'm picking, and it'd be easy to see painting inside or outside. So I can take my iPad outside, paint plein air, and this works because I have that nice like 50% gray background to lay everything against. So I'm not, getting the user interface is not like interfering with my ability to see my painting or my values. Like everything is intentional and it works so well. The tools are weird. You have got this fill tool that acts kind of like a lasso tool. You have the chisel that works kind of like as a textural like noise brush that's sort of like a flat shape. Then the oil brush, which is kind of similar to that, but has a little more of a filbert tip. And then you have the fill gradient, which is like the fill tool, but it mixes with the colors behind. The line gradient, which is you can toggle the M key and the S key to either mix or smudge. Then you do have an eyedropper key if you want to, like a little button there if you click on E, that lets you select a color that you've already found, and then it helps you get that exact color again. It all works elegantly, but it is very weird to get used to it. It's a crazy app, and it's a little disorienting. I mean, I like digital, and I like kind of tinkering around with computer stuff, and I like I like the problem solving of new apps. But if you don't, this will be a little weird for you probably at first. So I think I might do a tutorial video that kind of just walks you through step by step. But as you can see here, like I'm using that fill tool, and if you do download a demo of this or just try it out or whatever, try the fill tool. It's like crazy cool, because what it does is it forces you to look for those shapes of shadow, those shapes of highlight, and all you can do is kind of draw those shapes. And I like, personally not drawing the whole shape of the silhouette of the person at once. I like to draw like these little dashes and geometric shapes and these little squiggly shapes. And I like to kind of see them amassed together. And I can set the color jitter kind of up a little bit so I get little variations in there, and it gives it kind of a lifelike feel, a little more complexity than you would get if you just did the whole thing in one big bold shape. But I absolutely love it. Across the top, I did just bring that up. You've got color jitter and then scale. So the size of your brush and then the color jitter. The color jitter is really important because it gives a lot more variety and complexity to what can tend toward being a pretty flat looking brush stroke. So that's a very digital way of getting a traditional feel. That said, I like kind of keeping the jitter somewhere around 15 to 20%, and then just kind of setting it and forgetting it there. I like to also just lay in all my big, bold, flat tones right off the bat, and then using the mixing modifier with some of the different tools to get some of that blending and soft edge and stuff. But I really think it's important to start kind of bold and simple, thinking almost like about things as silhouettes, shapes of light, shapes of dark, shapes of midtone, and just trying to find the color that kind of matches, but making sure to get the value right, Here you can see I'm using the line gradient tool, and I'm going to use that sort of as one of my first kind of blending options. And I'm just tinkering around. It's like, how do I get some more of that like backlit color to kind of come in here? And you can see how beautiful it starts to become. This thing is surprising to me. As I was working through this painting, I kept feeling like excitement, genuine excitement. I was like, I'm learning. My brain is alive. I feel challenged. And then I'm actually liking the outcome and I'm interested in it. And it made me want to make a print of this. Like I was thinking how nice it would be to print like a big aluminum high gloss landscape of this, I just love that kind of cyberpunk color scheme with this really digital looking app and painting this really traditional looking scene. Well, traditional except for like the guy carrying the Walmart bag. I could have started with one concept and then moved it into another. But here you can see that was a little frame of just some of the tools that you can either add or subtract. You can, the app, like the different brushes, you can just add or subtract kind of at will. But here I'm using color mixing on the fiber brush. The fiber brush is just basically like a scribble form noise brush. And I was just using it to sort of mash some of the colors together using the mixer modifier. And then having a lot of fun with that. So one thing I would say about this painting as I was going is it's definitely a learning process. Like I've done a couple other paintings in this app before and they weren't really very successful, but I could tell that there was something in the app that I needed to keep playing with. I knew that what I was doing was good for me, like I was learning from it, but I wasn't decidedly loving the outcomes. And so that's why I just had to kind of keep at it. And it took me a couple days of just tinkering to really get there to finding, an outcome that I was like, ooh, I like this, and I could tell I liked it because as soon as I got home that day, I just showed my wife. I was like, ooh, look, and she was like, oh no, here you are, another art app. Right. But, and that's the first time I've done that. It's the first time I've shown her what I painted, and that always lets me know I'm excited about what I'm doing. So, the thing I needed at the end of this painting here was some highlights, but I wanted it to be soft and have like a nice gradient. So I kept thinking like, how do I do that? So I just decided to make the brush as really huge, but I didn't quite make it big enough here. So what I needed to do was kind of hit the reset button and just make it as big as possible. And then I just drag the brush down like you were using like, if you're spackling a wall, just kind of scraping it down from the top. And I did the same thing from the bottom using a darker tone. And that kind of made this cinematic feel between the upper and lower portion of the painting. And then in that midground, you start to see that there's just one thing needed, which is that high key pop of sunlight that's coming in from the far left edge of the painting. And so I used what's called the rake tool, and I set it to a pretty small size. You can see the size of my brush is that little dot that's over there on the upper left hand corner below that kind of rectangle. The rectangle is there used for color, but the dot is, showing you the scale. And I would say that you guys, I learned a ton doing this painting, and I was just immersed in it. I loved it. I couldn't handle, like my brain was on fire with learning, and that's what you want. It got me tuned up. It got me excited. It got me back in my art brain. It got me thinking like an artist, thinking about value, thinking about color, thinking about shape, thinking about all that stuff. And I was thinking about that, not thinking about, I wasn't thinking about the distracting stuff. Like, how much canvas lighting do I turn on, or how much how much bleed do I have on the watercolors, or how much do I, all of that kind of stuff. That's cool, and it gives you some great effects. But here with the kind of minimalist, trimmed down sort of setup, you don't get to think about a lot of that stuff. You just have to think about what makes a good painting, and how do you recreate the light that's sitting in front of you? How do you recreate the value that's sitting in front of you? How do you recreate the forms that are sitting in front of you? And how do you translate that in as simple a way as possible? And there are definitely some tips and tricks, and as you get used to the different tools, you'll start to get ideas. It's like you were a chef and you just walked into a kitchen with spices you've never used before, and you're just trying to learn how to cook again. But if those spices are amazingly well curated, you're going to be able to like make some crazy cool stuff. Like in this case, I was using the line gradient tool, or the fill gradient tool, which let me make these cool chevrons of light just kind of beaming through the wagon wheels or through the horse's legs or whatever. And so that was like, oh, this is sweet. And so it gave me a chance to play with some different ideas and really enhance the painting. I would say that, again, the one thing I didn't like about the painting is I kind of started with one concept and ended with another. So I have this one guy on the left side that looks like he's just leaving Target or something. And then on the far side, you've got these guys that look like, they're in some period movie of, like in the middle, in like the Fertile Crescent or something. I mean, it's not that old. I mean, maybe it's like a Wild West scene or something. But it just felt a little off. So at the end of the painting, what I did is I went back and I just fixed the Walmart guy or the Target guy and just turned him into a little bit more of a unique, or a garb or accessories that looked a little bit more like the rest of the scene. But that was easy and that was fun. One cool thing about exporting is, if you start with your default resolution, you can export it at like 4 times the size or something like that. I'll have to check the app, but I was able to export it at like 4,000 by 2,000 pixels. I have to check the pixels per inch on that, but it was a PNG, and so I'm hopeful that the resolution will be enough to be able to make a print of it. So I'm going to test that out this week and see how the print comes out. But thank you so much for checking it out, and I hope you'll give this app a try. It's so cool and so weird and so different, and it definitely will teach you to be a better painter. Thanks so much for the time. You guys are awesome. Take care.